The new channel. The new channel. Hashtag TNC Now.
The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following shows are those of the host, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the new channel. Our passion transforms a community channel that sees all things new. I am Jennifer Nuya, live streaming from Cavite, Philippines. You are watching Stories from the Fringe, Season 1, Episode 10. Please let me know that you can hear me well by typing into the comment section or chat box where you are joining us from today. And also you can use the chat box to drop in your comments, ask questions, or anything that you would like to share with us. We will also be using the same chat box to drop links that you can click on or copy for later use. If this is your first time to tune in to Stories from the Fringe aims to improve, push for more diversity, equity, inclusion, and the sense of belonging in all aspects of our lives. And we do this by pushing conversations from the fringe to the front of the conversations. We believe that we all deserve a world wherein all individual differences like race, gender, class, ability, among others, need not only seen and accepted, but also celebrated and empowered. And we can all share in this collective vision. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cholita Esplana, again for watching us. Also for Teresita. Also thanks to Teresita Lanes Manalo, our Ring Bautista. Also thank you for tuning in, joining us. Gel Selegna of Rax and Tea. So if you ever go to V Central Mall Molino Bacoor, please make sure to drop in. They have very good variety or selections of tea and coffee. And also thank you, Rosemary Fiesta, for supporting. Though she's not able to join us during our live stream, she always watches the replays. All right, so I'd like to encourage you to prepare to be fully immersed, engaged with our guest today. So he will be live streaming from New York City, US, and please make sure to turn off all distractions and prepare to take mental notes. Also weigh in if you want, and be engaged with Richard Schreiber. So before I call on Richard, I also would like to introduce my guest co-host. He was named by Gawad Filipino Award as the most influential film producer for 2021. He started as a vlogger and now has expanded his responsibilities as an independent film producer. And he did acting workshops with director Beverly Verhel and did one film with the renowned actor Piolo Pascual. He will also be producing his new movie next month, November, with a new whole cast and under a new production name. So let me welcome Harley Lee.
Hi again. Good morning, Miss Jennifer. Also, good morning to all your viewers. And of course, I'm very excited again today to have our guest.
Yes, I am excited too. So let's call him. Thank you, Richard, for dropping in on our show.
And Harley, I'm so happy to be here, and good evening from New York City, and um, terribly pleased to be broadcasted to the wonderful islands of the Philippines. One of my favorite sites for a James Bond movie back in the day.
Mm. So does it mean that you have been here in the Philippines, or you plan to visit the Philippines soon?
I would love to plan to visit the Philippines, and I hope I get wealthy enough one day to perhaps buy an island for myself and just disappear from mankind. It's so beautiful.
All right. Isn't that our ambition? I mean, not everyone probably, but majority of people's ambition is to become wealthy enough to buy their own island.
This is true. Although here in New York, it's much more expensive to do that, obviously, than other parts of the world. But it would be nice.
Mm-hmm. So, Richard, can you please share a brief background about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. I am fastly approaching my twilight years. I like to characterize myself as being a husband and the father of a neurodiverse child. I'm a technologist by fundamental vocation, if you will. I help entrepreneurs and small business owners and also large corporations develop their software applications or source them if it's off the shelf, or if it's a kind of custom work, then I help them bring that to fruition because I speak the language of both the person on the customer side and the creative side, along with the technical folks on the development side. But what I try to do more and more is explore opportunities in technology within my advocacy work. Raising an autistic child is in this day and age is obviously has a series of challenges, and the history and my story behind that is very detailed and nuanced. It has a lot of moving parts, and I won't necessarily go through that now, except to say it has given me a greater appreciation for the struggles that other parents in a similar position very likely go through. And because of that, my wife and I created a community here in New York City. We have a Facebook group. We used to have small get-togethers with other families with children on the spectrum, play dates, activities, and so forth before COVID, of course. And we want to get back to that because we feel very strongly that other families can benefit from our experiences, especially parents just kind of feeling their way around what it is to have an autistic child, given that there's so many variations in how the symptoms and the characteristics manifest child to child, what age they're diagnosed. Of course, there are significant distinctions between males and females in the way that these symptoms manifest. So I'm interested in technology and innovation, really, in the space of autism advocacy, and that's driven my current projects.
All right. I wonder, when did you first learn about the neurodiversity of your child?
We kind of always knew that she was different because when she was a little girl, even a toddler, she loved this one CD that we used to play over and over again. And she would dance and spin around like a top, but she never got dizzy. So that was kind of like the first sign. And there we kind of knew she was a little different, but then when she went into pre-K, we were a little concerned she was less verbal than other kids. But then by a miracle, she started to talk and be conversant. We actually had her test into a program called Gifted and Talented. The school was basically offering that, encouraged every child to have their child test into that. And lo and behold, our daughter tested into it, and that was our first kind of official confirmation that there was something special in her. She is brilliant and very smart, smarter than I am. She should probably be on the program, not me. But shortly thereafter, we were blessed that one of her first grade teacher actually was the first to really recognize that her behavior, because it escalated as she got a little bit older. So probably around 6 or 7 is when we officially knew that she is diagnosed with Asperger's. And my wife and I, of course, didn't really have a lot of knowledge on autism. This is almost 10 years ago, and we were pretty ignorant about it. We didn't really know, so we had to really get up to speed pretty quickly. And like most parents that really don't have a place to go to, and you're kind of forced, as the school did, to have us do something pretty quickly. We met with a psychologist and then put my daughter on a prescription.
All right. Yes, all right. Mr. Richard, I was supposed to ask you, when did you find out the church child has an autism? Well, it was answered already. How were you able to cope up with that stage, knowing that you have mentioned that you really know about autism?
Yeah, I think, as I said, initially we knew we had to do something, and so we put her on a prescription drug called Adderall, and it's more tailored for kids that have ADHD, attention deficit disorder, and that's what my daughter was actually first diagnosed with. So that helped arrest some of her symptoms, but it really had some horrible side effects. She lost a tremendous amount of weight. She was almost kind of drugged out and very complacent in school. And what was a watershed moment for us was when she graduated from elementary school. The last day of school, I came by her school to pick her up, and most of the rest of her classmates were laughing and taking pictures, talking to the teachers and the other students, and my daughter was off by herself, and she was crying, something that she rarely does. And I said, Katerina, that's her name, as I stooped down next to her, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Daddy, for 6 years, nobody wanted to be my friend." And that was because of, her autism symptoms and, the impact on her ability to socialize or inability to socialize, and then the effect of the drug, which just stupefied her and really robbed her of her personality and who she was. So, but it was a wake-up call for me as a father, knowing that, I did, basically checked all the boxes at that point, but I had to do more. I had to become her advocate. And I think that is a journey that anyone who's a parent of an autistic child comes to terms with at some point, that you have to parent a child. It's challenging enough to parent a neurotypical child, but parenting a neurodiverse child, that's a whole other level. And you have to be fully committed, all in, and you have to be your child's advocate until you can teach them to be their own. So at that point, it becomes a pretty all-in, exhaustive process, because you want to try everything for your child.
I can see you have a lot of struggles when you found out that your daughter has, she was diagnosed with autism. You are in a small family, should I say that? Where did you, or whom did you seek, aside from the doctor, whom did you seek for advices, comfort, just to feel that you are accepting that your child already has an autism?
Yeah, that's a great question, Harley. And that's really one that every parent of an autistic child really needs to consider. And the problem is, most parents, and we were sort of guilty of this, there's a tendency to think that your child and your situation is so unique that nobody else can really help you. That, you know your child best, you know whatever your child's symptoms are, and that's really not the right approach.
Mhm.
The better approach is to talk to as many people as you can, be open about it, because by talking about it, not only do we kind of get past our own head, but we might find other solutions. And, working with an autistic child, first of all, something that I learned in the course of time as a parent, our first instinct is to want to fix them.
Mhm.
And that's just so wrong, because there's nothing wrong with them. An autistic child isn't disabled, they're not handicapped, they're just different.
Mhm.
Simple, just like any other diversity group. And
Yeah,
that's
I love that. I love how you phrase it, Richard, when you said there's nothing to fix because they're not disabled. They have
yeah,
nothing wrong with them. They're just, their brain is just wired differently.
correct.
So what left also an impression on me is earlier when you said that most your child is a gifted one. Your child is should be in the program rather than you because she is talented. And yes, I'm Harley. From the brief videos that I have watched done by her by Richard's daughter, I can see that she is very eloquent and very smart also. So that's not very surprising. There are some videos or even articles about people with autism. They're really talented. There's this painter when he flew once on a helicopter overseeing. I don't know if you're aware of that. He oversaw the skyline of New York City, and after alighting, he drew the whole metropolis from
Wow.
memory.
Wow.
Yes.
Not,
So and then I think I'm not sure if you have watched the film The Queen's Gambit. It's still on Netflix, I think. I'm not
I've
sure
seen it.
if she has autism or ADHD, but I'm pretty sure she is also one neurodiverse
Yeah.
individual. So some of these individuals, they are what they call savant, right?
Savants, yeah.
Yeah, savant. So they are gifted in a different way. They
Yeah.
express themselves differently from us neurotypical people.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
they certainly do. And they have gifts. They have gifts. You're right, Jennifer. The best description I heard was actually from when we enrolled our daughter in a program locally called Brain Balance. And Brain Balance takes a different approach. Instead of looking at a diagnostic kind of approach toward
Yeah.
dealing with autism, it looked at it from more of a neurological, what are the physical aspects that, in terms of left brain, right brain functions, that can be accentuated and restored through activities, through proper diet, through a lot of exercises and activities, and so we enrolled our daughter in that. It was, a complete, you know wild card, if you will, but it produced significant results. It bettered her hand-eye coordination. It helped develop her emotionally and in other ways. And we took a chance on this 5-6 years ago, and then more recently there was a Harvard Business School study that showed that the principles of what brain balance does is just as effective as a pharmaceutical or pharmacological option. So that kind of confirmed to us, we were relatively early adopters. But again, it underscores what I said earlier, that there are avenues of innovation and technology out there, that can really provide alternatives and also holistic options too. We took our daughter off Adderall and put her on essential oils, and it was a remarkable transformation of our daughter. The side effects, of course, went away. She gained weight, but she gained back who she is. And now she's so probably more expressed than I'd like her to be because, as you can imagine, she's a teenager on top of everything else. So
Yeah.
most teenagers don't have a good evidence of having the filters of knowing
Yeah.
what to say and not to say anyway. But my daughter has it in spades. But so yeah, that kind of brings her up to where we are today.
Mhm. So you mentioned your experience with your daughter 6 years ago when she graduated, and she's. I felt that it must really be heartbreaking to realize that after those years that she's been with the teachers and the other students, no one wanted to be friends with her. I would assume that she was in a mainstream school, or was it a special school?
She was in a public school.
Mm-hmm.
But again, she was in a gifted and talented program, but that really focused more on academia
Mm-hmm.
because she was so bright, particularly in math and science. The so-called STEM field. She did well,
Mm-hmm.
and I think early on, when she was really young, the kids were really nice and accommodated to her. But something happens in a child's evolution when they get to around fourth or fifth grade. They gain a little bit more maturity, and then when they see something that's different or that they don't understand, they tend to feel more repelled by that than drawn towards it. And I think that's what happened to my daughter that last school year. Up until that point, she pretty much was able to enjoy her schooling. But I think that last year, a couple of the kids that she felt she befriended earlier on started to move away from her because they just got older, and I guess things changed. And again, because my daughter wasn't really able to socialize with them, that kind of was ultimately what happened. I'm happy to say that subsequently my daughter has really taught herself how to make small talk. She's very conversant, and she can hold her own in a conversation. And she's been blessed because she also has 4 or 5 cousins. My wife has a pretty big family, and they've always embraced her and loved her and totally and made her feel comfortable and really that's I think one of the real heartwarming aspects is to see her with her cousins. You just get that unconditional love and support, and they carry on. You wouldn't even know that my daughter has any kind of socialization challenges.
It's good. Richard, this is kind of a story, but for the public knowledge, or did she ever find out, or did she ever learn that she has, this kind of, should we say, some kind of different personality?
Oh yeah,
Did she ever find out she has an autism? Just for
yes,
the public.
yeah, no, we explained it to her every step of the way.
Yes.
When she was being she was tested twice or examined twice, and we shared the results with her. And of course, as she got into school, in public school, they have something called an individual. The acronym is IEP, which is an individual educational plan or program, which is tailored towards children with special needs. So our feeling was better for her to find out from us than from some stranger or somebody else that she was different. And I know there are parents out there that may be confronted by telling their child that they may be on the spectrum. And I would just encourage you to always be upfront with your child. It is not a stigma. There's no shame ever in being who you are, whether it's autistic or any other kind of special need. And that's an important message that the child has to see. If the parents are ashamed of the child, imagine the effect on the child. That can be really traumatic. So be honest, be upfront with your child. But again, tell them and reassure them there's nothing wrong with them. They're just different. Just like a black child is different than a Chinese child is different than a Mexican child is different than a Puerto Rican child. We are all diverse in this planet. It's just another way that we're diverse, whether if it is in the neurodiversity space.
Yes, yes. I can see that you have, you did not culture in your mind that being or having an autistic child is not, you adjusted well. But can you say that have you ever encountered in your life that you almost broke down, or you break down and you were down because of these things? That
Yeah,
to the point that you're not accepting at all. The most problems that you have encountered.
yeah. I think we one of the things that we always stressed in our family, we're a devout family. I was raised Protestant. My wife and daughter were all Lutheran in our religious observance. That's always been a really strong foundation in our family. But I have to say, yeah, I remember when our daughter was maybe 7 or 8, maybe even younger than that, and she would have these incredible, explosive fits and tantrums. And I didn't know what the heck to make of it, and it really scared the shit out of me. Pardon my English. So that was definitely a scary moment. But the other times, when certainly that moment that I described earlier, when that realization set into me that my daughter was going to struggle making friends, and knowing how important socialization is to a young person, it certainly pained my heart and my wife's heart that our daughter was not accepted. Subsequently, in middle school, she was actually bullied for 2 years at her middle school, which unfortunately is very common. And we didn't have a lot of success really in going to the school leadership and getting them to really move off of that. And unfortunately, in public school in New York, even though New York City is arguably one of the most diverse places on the planet, public school doesn't really have a strong diversity, unity, and inclusion program. They don't really teach that to the students. And part of that is because it's just really not in their mindset. And I even offered at my daughter's school where she was being bullied, which was a school, by the way, that had a program that was specifically designed to integrate highly functional autistic children within a general ed classroom. So, but rather than telling the other students in the school to embrace and to accept and to befriend these children, they walked around like with a bullseye on their backs. And it was just to me, it was just a horrible experience and an indication of a lack of leadership. And ultimately, we transferred our daughter to a school that had an anti-bullying program, and then COVID set in. But anyway, I think the moral of the story is, at least here, public schools have to do a better job, I think, of really exploring the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Jennifer, by full disclosure, you and I are part of a startup called Games to Unite, where we are creating a board game called Ubuntu Game, with the intent to teach teenagers at that young age, before they start formulating some of the bias and racism and negative thoughts that maybe they start to percolate as they get older or inherit from their parents. But to have these explorations and these discovery sessions with other students that are diverse, so that they begin to understand their differences and realize that, again, we're all different. The problem is, if we don't have exposure to that, if we don't have understanding of that, appreciation of that, then we fall into a primal space where, if we tend, and that tendency is to dislike or fear anything that's different from us. And unfortunately, most of the time when we're afraid of something, we usually avoid it, or worse, react aggressively towards it. So this is where, I know that we feel there has to be a lot of progress made, not just in America, but around the world, in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And it starts with young people. It starts with getting them to acknowledge and appreciate the differences of their classmates who come from a different race, creed, color, country, religion, and to learn to embrace and accept that. That's how you beat stereotypes and racism and hatred and bullying and all these things. So that's the movement we're hoping to really create in the world.
Thank you for sharing your struggles, your challenges as a father having an autistic child, Richard, and also providing our viewers a brief background of what we do on Games to Unite. So we'll go on a short break, and then after a break, we'll discuss more about your advocacy, about Games to Unite, and also your NYC Autism group.
Thank you. Sounds great.
Yes.
Have you been dreaming of launching your own podcast but don't know how and where to start? Let ValuePod Productions podcast editing and management services help you effortlessly launch, syndicate, and grow your podcast. Message us at facebook.com/ValuePodProductions. ValuePod Productions podcast editing and management services, humanizing personal connections through podcasting.
TNC is a live stream platform of online shows for people on the go. Please watch all of our shows as seen on the screen. Imagine having your own show, your own playlist, your own content, but we make it easier for you. The new channel aims to transform the lives of our viewers through engaging, authentic, and original content. Our vision is to become a global 24/7 live stream channel that showcases Filipino talent, global influencers, cultural intelligence, and ingenuity. Of course, I encourage you to continue supporting Stories from the Fringe, live streamed every Thursday, Philippine Standard Time, 10:30 a.m. You can watch us live or on replay via Facebook or YouTube. Please also follow us on IG and listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Just search hashtag TNC Now. For sponsorships, please email now@thenewchannel.com or send us a direct message. Enjoy these life-changing shows because we made them just for you. Wonderful. It's 72 days before Christmas. And if you haven't made your wish list yet, I suggest that you make it now. And one of the shops that you may want to check out on IG is Pop Avenue PH, Private Pop Avenue PH. And also, I would like to thank Shawil. They have a flagship store on Lazada. Thank you, Shawil, for the advance birthday gift and also, shall I say, Christmas gift. Thank you for the velvety matte lip crayon and also the chocolate bro cake that you sent. Thank you so much. Now, can we call back Harley and Richard?
Hello, folks. Those were some fun
Welcome back again. Sorry.
Thanks.
Yes.
Those were some fun
Yeah.
commercials. I love the energy and certain color and whatnot. That's pretty cool stuff. This is a great network. I love it.
Yes.
Glad that you liked it.
Yes, you know we have heard your initiative or your actions about how can you be heard being a parent of an autistic child. Based from my research, we have a prevalence of 0.6 to 1% of total population in the world of having autism. Do you think from this small population, the 90% or the 99%, population in this world, you will be heard because of this small population that you have?
That's a really great question, Harley. And it's interesting. I know that there's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of talk lately about how, if you certainly look back historically, like 30, 40 years ago, the statistics about the number of people being diagnosed with autism back then were like one in 1,000. So every time there's a new study that is done, the number becomes smaller and smaller. The current number is 1 in 59, which was done 3 years ago. But I know, for example, here in the United States, that number varies state to state. And you might say that's kind of curious. Why would that be? But for example, I live in New York. The neighboring state, New Jersey, that number is more like 1 in 39. And of course, one of the super challenges in autism is they don't really know what the cause is. There's a lot of speculation, and there's actually some new data that's coming out that it's possible that the food that we eat that has an enormous array of chemicals, pesticides, GMO enhanced feed and seed is exacerbating and accelerating not just neurodiversity, but various other things, such as the plethora of food allergies that children now seem to have. So there are people that are saying that we're poisoning our children today, and one outcome of that is the increase in the reported number of cases of autism. Other people say that the diagnostic processes have gotten more sophisticated and more accurate, so therefore there isn't really an increase in the number of children or adults on the spectrum. It's just that there's more opportunity and more avenues to better diagnose our children and adults today. So I don't know. I'm not really privy to. I'm no more than what you folks might be too, and what I read. But there seems to be some legitimate studies out there pointing towards an increase in the number of people on the spectrum. But to answer your point, how Harlan, autism in the last 5 years has gotten a tremendous amount of press and notice. And thankfully, in some states here in the US, additional funding, laws have been changed to provide additional levels of service. So I think we're seeing that there is a shift in a positive way towards acknowledging and recognizing this as, something, neurodiversity as something that requires significant amount of support. And we're seeing a shift in that space. Whether it's enough, I think that is, the jury's still out on that. And certainly there seems to be a lot more need for services, information, and support as teenagers age out of some of the services and some of the provisions that they get when they're much younger. And the biggest challenge is, of course, as teens graduate from college and become young adults, whether they can really self-advocate enough to hold a job, to live by themselves, and to be able to have a mainstream life that they so deserve. So those are the real challenges. And again, as more and more autistic children begin to age through and cycle through as they get older, this puts more and more pressure and desirability on these services once these children kind of age out of what's available and become adults. So that's I think the most prevailing concern that we're facing today.
Yes. Given this during this age, we are in an innovative stage. We really appreciate those, in the position that they are getting more. We are getting more support from our government. But I will ask this. We have these pandemic issues. How this pandemic, or did it really affect the development or the progress or the regression of your or anything from your child being autistic? Because we are being confined from our home during this pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies child to child. We followed our child very closely during this whole pandemic, but there were times where she worked entirely remotely. But I think almost in a way, for her, she was able to adjust to that, perhaps even better than neurotypical children, because she's very much into repetition and routine. And for her, it was an easy stretch to do remote learning. She was able to show up on time, keep her camera on, do her schoolwork.
That's good.
So in that sense, she was able to surmount some of the challenges. Conversely, though, she didn't have the socialization opportunities either. And I know from other of her cousins who are neurotypical, that had a big effect on them, especially when, for example, they couldn't go to their middle school graduation It was done online, and they couldn't see their friends in person, only through Zoom sessions. So in many ways, I think it we don't know what the impact is going to be of COVID and these last 18 months or up to 2 years will have on our children who have gone through this experience. I think as a general comment, we're going to have a lot of mental health support needed for children in general, because in many ways that socialization aspect has been deprived for 18 months or longer. And it's children are adaptable, they get over things, but let's not kid ourselves, they're affected. And we all, even as adults, remember something that happened in our childhood that could be traumatic that stays with us even today. So we don't really know what COVID, how that's going to manifest our children, until we come out of this and really begin to see where they are. So yeah, it's a we don't really know, Harlan, what the impact is yet.
Yes, yes. That's very nice to hear that, despite that, your child is an autistic, the pandemic does not give her an issue of adjusting to the environment. But for the neurotypical, they are the one who has having problems right now, right? So that's a very good news for, and also an encouragement for a lot of people, to this group or to other groups. So
Yeah,
that's very nice to hear, right, Miss
it's
Jennifer?
it's thank you. It's yeah, we were blessed that our daughter, um, she's relatively well adapted, and she's able to really, you know, move through things, and she's very resilient. But I don't want to say that other autistic children weren't affected, because I know they were,
Yeah,
and in some cases more severely than neurotypicals. Again, it really depends on
yeah,
how
really.
functional they are, um, and again, suffice to say that uh, COVID's had COVID's had an extraordinary effect on all children, but in
Yes.
particular neurotypical and neurodiverse children.
Yes, thank you to the parents. Your child was very nourished because of your very persuasive and from support of the immediate family.
Yeah, it's important to really talk to your child, um, and ask a lot of questions. How do you feel? Are you happy? Is there anything you need? Is there anything making you sad? Um, questions like
Communicate.
that. Questions like that we would ask our daughter, and she would always say, "No, I'm fine." Um, but I know other kids, their responses were probably not that way. So, but it is necessary to always communicate with your children in that manner,
Yes.
even normally, but especially in these times of COVID, especially teenagers, because they're less likely to be as open with their parents and more likely to kind of hold things within. Um, but you got to get them talking.
Mhm.
Alright.
Yes.
Even though as a teenager you
Um.
might regret that, but you got to get them talking somehow.
That's
Your,
nice to
da-
hear that. Yeah, Miss Jen, go ahead.
your daughter reminds me of my daughter. My daughter is an introvert, and she mentioned to me that if she had her way, she would have wanted to just stay in the house, study until she finishes her schooling in our house. So I think that she is also able to adapt well in the new remote learning setup. Now we're close to the bottom of the hour, Richard, Harley. So Richard, as a parent who has a daughter who has autism, who has experienced all the struggles, and I'm pretty sure that you're doing your best but there will still be some, pits and stops, right? So, what are the three things that you would like parents with children with the same condition do or know?
Yeah, I think the first thing is start at an early age as possible to get your child tested and examined. Um, and again, that really stems from and starts with um, not being fearful or not taking it personal. A lot of parents, I think, if their child is diagnosed with whatever learning disability or even physical disability, there's a tendency to take it personally, but don't. Um, have the courage to get your child examined. The beauty is early intervention can actually reverse or suspend a lot of the autism symptoms in a child. And here in the US, up until age 5, that examination and intervention is actually free. It's part of government programs, and I would imagine that's the case throughout the world. So
I'm not
yeah,
sure for the Philippines, Richard.
okay, well, maybe in America, Canada, and so forth. So that's the first thing is get your child examined early on, and because they've come a long ways towards the effectiveness of early diagnosis and intervention, which can actually reverse a lot of the trends. And then the second thing is, what I said a little bit about earlier is that your child is different. They're not disabled. There's nothing wrong with them. Resist the temptation to fix them. And I have to, for full disclosure, I fell into that trap. Um, and I regret that. And there were certain things that we did have our daughter participate in that she didn't really have a say and a choice in the matter, and I regret that because, any child should have a say and and have a conversation about, what it is. Again, as a parent, you run that fine line between having to make decisions on their behalf when they're a little bit younger and less mature, but as they get older, um, and that's probably around 12 and 13, they're smart enough at that point, especially kids today, Jennifer. I mean, there's so much out there. There's so much information. When I was a 10-year-old, I didn't know nothing. My daughter by age 10 probably knew 10 times more than I knew, only because of the information superhighway we have out there. So, and then the third thing is, try everything. Try various different innovative techniques, try holistic methodologies, and talk to other parents. We're not alone. I think that's the moniker that our autism community in New York says. We are not alone. When we share about our experiences and talk about them and exchange ideas and what works, it gets us out of our heads and gets us into our hearts and opens up doorways, that we just don't see. As humans, we have blind spots, and the only way we can get around them is by talking to other people who may have seen things in a different way and don't have the same blind spots. So it's probably a long-winded answer, but those I think would be the three things I would point to.
Thank you for sharing those, Richard. And after this show, after this conversation, how can our viewers stay in touch with you through social media?
Sure. Well, the New York City Autism Community Group, we have a website, which I think we posted. We also have a Facebook group under that name, which is easy to find. So you're welcome to join up. I post articles all the time. We're going to be getting a parental support group together where we can start talking and sharing about our ideas and thoughts. Of course, Games to Unite and ubuntu-game.com, ubuntu game.com is our foray into the e-learning and e-sports space. to again introduce teenagers and students to diversity, unity, and inclusion. So feel free to, and we're always looking for people that are interested in helping us along the way on our cause, especially interns. So if you want to volunteer for us and really, learn what it's like to be involved in change and in a real movement, we would welcome you. So.
Mhm. Thank you. And also, you, Harley, probably you would like to invite our viewers to also connect with you on social media.
Yeah, before that, I would like to thank our guest, Mr. Richard. Of course, we had learned a lot of things, and one thing I would like to advise for our televiewers is that because of this advancement of age and technology, we should be very more careful for what we are giving or what we are taking into our lives, especially the food we eat, etc. So it's a very individualized responsibility, especially for the parents. Again, thank you so much, Mr. Richard. And also, I would like to ask all of your televiewers, all of our televiewers, to please watch my Facebook. My Facebook is Harley Lee, and then my YouTube channel, Harlan's Entertainment Production. And of course, thank you so much to my family, my Nuvesense Skin Care Center, and then also my Raul Guanzon and Nakamura Restaurant.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard, for sharing your background and the brilliant work that you do at Games to Unite and also NYC Autism Group. We need more support groups like yours. And dear viewers, thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with us today. And if you loved today's conversation, please let us know in the chat box or in the comment section. And so that we can provide more content that best serves your need, let us also know in the comment section. All right. So if you haven't already, if you love today's session, please encourage your friends, family members to watch Stories from the Fringe every Thursday, 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Philippine Standard Time. I'll see you again next Thursday, October 21st. And you have a good day, a good evening, and God bless you all.